We know that obesity increases the risk to develop MS. In this video, I'm going to share with you some new data which discusses the impact of obesity in speeding up the MS disease process. Howdy, my name's Boster. I'm an MS neurologist in Columbus, Ohio. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the impact of being overweight or obese on multiple sclerosis. Don't turn away, because all of that starts right now. So it turns out that being overweight or obese increases a given individual's risk to develop multiple sclerosis. Someone who's overweight increases their risk by 38%, and someone who's obese increases their risk by 88%, and that's a lot. In this video, however, I wanted to share some new data which looks at the impact of obesity on someone who already has multiple sclerosis. So what is the impact on being overweight or obese as it relates to MS disease progression, to new MRI lesions, and even to cognitive function? Grab a pen and paper and let's jump in. Today I'll be reviewing an article recently published in the Journal of Neurology, Neuroimmunology, and Neuroinflammation entitled Obesity Affects Disease Activity and Progression, Cognitive Function, and Quality of Life in People with Multiple Sclerosis. The first author is Wu. I'll include a link to the full article in the description section in case you would like to read it in its entirety. Now, the authors used the Swedish National MS Registry, which is this giant Swedish database which follows people in the country with multiple sclerosis over a long period of time. They looked at over 3,200 people with MS, and they grouped them based on their BMI, or body mass index. So they defined as a healthy weight of a BMI of 18.5 to 25, overweight 25 up to 30, and then obese over 30. These patients were followed in this study for almost 11 years. So there was a long period of time they were being evaluated. And they looked at several different important outcome measures. To look at MS progression, they studied changes in the EDSS, or the Expanded Disability Status Scale. That's where you take the standard neurological examination and you turn it into a number. And you can see how it changes over time to look at progression of disability. They studied cognition by looking at a very, very useful test called the Symbol Digit Modality Test. And this is a matching quiz which is exquisitely sensitive to pick up cognitive changes and cognitive deficits in MS. And lastly, to look at quality of life measures, they looked at something called the Multiple Sclerosis Impact Scale, which is a survey that patients fill out that gives insight into how they're doing. They were able to look at all of these metrics over a long period of time, and then they were able to analyze how the people that were considered healthy weight, overweight, and obese compared. So let's take a look at the data. First, we'll look at the impact of obesity on progression of disability. And what you see here is that the people that were considered obese started off with a higher disability score than those that were of healthy weight or just considered overweight. Now, what's more concerning is that as you look forward in time, those that are obese got worse faster. They had a faster progression of neurological disability compared to those that were just overweight or considered of a healthy weight. To assess quality of life, patients use that survey I mentioned, the Multiple Sclerosis Impact Score, and that can be subdivided into physical quality of life and then psychological quality of life. What they found was obese patients had a higher risk of worsening in both metrics across time as compared to the quality of life of normal weight patients. When studying changes in cognition over time, we saw the same trend. Obese patients lost cognitive function faster than patients of a healthy weight. And when they looked specifically at obese patients who didn't lose any weight, they were still the same degree of obesity, their risk of cognitive impairment was 51% higher. Now, the study also allowed us to evaluate changes on the MRI. And what they found was that overweight patients increased the risk of new MRI lesions by 21% higher than those of a healthy weight. Obese patients had an increased risk of new lesions by 44% more than those of a healthy weight. So what we take away from this evaluation is not only are people who are overweight or obese at increased risk to develop MS, but if they have MS, they're more likely to have faster progression of disability, worsening quality of life, faster progression of cognitive impairment, and a higher risk of new MRI lesions. The authors tried to answer the question, what about if someone were to lose weight? And unfortunately, very few patients who were considered obese had lost significant weight by the end of the trial. There was a very small number of patients that did, and it didn't show that there was a big impact to improve those scores. However, when I look at this data, I think it's really hard to interpret that because there was such a small number of patients. I would love to see data on a large group of people impacted by MS who were obese, lost weight, and then were followed for a long period of time. We unfortunately just don't have that information available. That stated, I want to believe that we can impact the disease by controlling weight better. Trying to make MS boring goes way beyond just taking a disease-modifying therapy. In today's video, I shared with you some compelling data on the impact of obesity in multiple sclerosis. If you'd like to learn more about MS and how to up your game, click the video that's on your screen right now. And as always, this is Boster saying thank you for learning about MS with me. Be safe and take care.